This week on Self Starters, I'm here with Dom Minogue. Dom is the founder of Dirty Water. Dirty Water is a gluten-free, zero carb, zero calorie, zero sugar, 90 calorie.
90 calories, zero sugar.
Hard seltzer.
Yes.
Dom, what are you up to right now?
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Right now, I'm chatting with you, but just in the grand scheme of things, I'm sort of going day to day, doing the starter grind of trying to get this product out in the streets of New York.
It's out in the streets, right?
Yep, it's out in the streets, yes.
So what are you doing right now to really get it out on the streets?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't know about just like the alcohol and beverage industry, so I didn't come from a CPG background. And so one of the first things I learned was how really grindy it is. So it's literally me being the founder-led sales, going door to door or trying to find warm intros, just trying to find accounts that want to bring me in. Kind of selling the dream every day. I'm focusing mainly on on-premise locations, so that being bars, restaurants, and trying to partner with them to see, if they'll help me push it.
Now, were you searching for a CPG product and then just like fell onto something that fit for you, or did you fall into this and then fell into CPG?
I would say kind of both. So before this, I was in mobile gaming, so ad tech. I was doing performance marketing, product and operations. And then before that, I was in fashion, actually. I was doing a little bit of styling, merchandising. But being in the ad tech space and the mobile gaming space, the way that we functioned and operated were as a publisher, right? And so what we would do is we would buy and aggregate tons of games. And we would test them and see the viability. And then we would fix them up, scale them, and then get them to like number one in the App Store. Right, and so with this and the velocity that we were working at, billions of downloads, right? It was very, very playbook, and we would create playbooks, create formulas, and create means to successes there, which was great. But the one thing that I missed from the marketing aspect was the branding, right? The brand and sort of brand building, like we were a machine. And so the one thing that I really wanted to do was do something that was more brand focused and brand led, whether it was an alcoholic beverage, a sauce, a hot sauce. I'm a TikTok chef also, so I do a little home cooking. So something that was a little more physical and more consumable, but not consumable in the way of like, say, clothing, where it is very cyclical and sort of like materialistic, right? So something that people could consume and repurchase and just build a brand off of one specific thing. And so that's why I always wanted to go into CPG. I didn't know what exactly it was. I didn't want to just jump into it and start like looking for ideas. I waited for something that I had enough conviction for, and this was the thing that came to me. And so the way that I came to this was it was me back in my tech days in SF. I was doing your 16-hour grinds, right? And then every day I would come home and just crack open a Bud Light.
Now, we're 2024 right now. How far back are you talking?
So this was 2018 I was working.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2018, I was cracking open Bud Lights, one, two a day every day after work just to unwind, right? And which was great, but at this same time, I wasn't really working out. I was just kind of focusing on work. And at bars, like on weekends, I would be drinking vodka sodas. So something that was a little bit more and lighter calorie. Got
it, but it sounds like regardless, you are health conscious.
So I was health conscious.
Because I'm hearing Bud Lights, which are a low-calorie beer. So for people who just like to taste the beer, they might go the Bud Light route just because it's the healthier of the beers.
Right.
And now you're talking about vodka sodas, you just said?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
That's the healthier of the liquor drinks. So there was a healthy aspect in your mind.
Yeah, so there was a health conscious aspect. And I'll get into like the running aspect in a bit, which I ran high school and D1, and then I stopped running for a very long time and then got back into it during COVID. But before running, I was just going to work and drinking Bud Lights. And
you were a high school runner?
I was a high school runner, yeah.
What'd you run?
I ran the half mile, the mile. I was more like a mid-distance guy.
They had that in high school?
Yep.
They had the mile in high school?
Yep.
Where'd you grow
up? Here in New York.
They had so where'd you run? Up the Armory?
Yeah, so I ran at the Armory. So I grew up in this county called Rockland County, which is just north of the city.
Of course I know Rockland County.
Some people don't. Yeah, it's the Rock, but some people call it upstate. It's not upstate.
Rockland County. That is not upstate.
But to people, anything above Yonkers is upstate. But yeah, I ran there, so ran the mile, ran the half mile, and then I went to college. Was not successful at all doing D1. Ended up transferring out to FIT, which is more of a fashion school.
Interesting. You were a D1 athlete.
I get to say I was a D1
You were a D1 athlete.
But my PRs and PBs were from high school. But for all intents and purposes, I was a D1 athlete. I went through the regimen of a D1 athlete, which I think is the most important part. Right?
Absolutely. And the regimen of an athlete, period, holds so true to the vibe of an entrepreneur and someone who literally is comfortable with the grind.
Yeah, comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting into, more importantly, routine. Because being an entrepreneur, there is no routine, but you have to have the routine of working hard and not having a routine.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, going back to the reason why I started it, right, I did have this routine, right? And I wanted this routine to be a little bit more optimized, right? And I was like, I'm drinking these Bud Lights every day, which is beer. It's like, pretty carby, a lot of decent amount of calories, right? And I was drinking these vodka sodas on weekends, and I was like, I wish there was a format of like this, because you love the dopamine effect of opening a can, right? I wish there was this format of like a 30 rack of vodka sodas that felt like a beer, right? And this was before I discovered hard seltzers at all. At the time, there were like a few brands out there that were doing canned vodka sodas, but they were very premium. They were like your Whole Foods brands, right? So it was like a 6-pack for like $20, which is not the vibe and value prop that I am aligned with. So I was just thinking about the idea, and then I discovered hard seltzers, and I was like, this is the solution to my problem. So I started drinking tons of hard seltzers, every flavor under the sun, for about 4 years, and then in 2022, finally moved back to New York. And I was like, hey, it's been 4 years, and no one's done the initial value prop of what I wanted, which was a single flavor, beer-adjacent experience. And when I think of a beer experience, I think of light, crisp, refreshing. I don't think of tart or fruity or flavor-forward, right? I just think of almost hydrating in a way, right? Where it's like you take this nice swig of a light beer, and it's like, that's like refreshing. You can have it with any sort of food, and it doesn't weigh you down. Right? And so that's what I really wanted. But every hard seltzer does like this really fruity experience. And so I wanted something that was, again, more beer adjacent. 2022 hit, the hard seltzer boom sort of like collapsed almost. People are going into like different directions with RTD cocktails. And I was like, I considered the market more mature now.
And RTD stands for?
Ready to drink cocktails.
Okay.
So like more your spirit based, so like vodka based, tequila based. These, like, so for example, White Claw, my drink, and a few others that you start malt based, which is, it's called sugar brew, which is without getting too much into the weeds of it, but it's a sugar brew based.
But it being a malt beverage is what keeps it sugarful.
Yep.
And that's kind of what a lot of people try and shy away from.
Exactly, yeah. And so there is a way to make this malt beverage that is sugar-free, which is, it's even though it has sugar in the name, it's basically just fermented sugar. The sugar and the sugar calories get fermented. I don't know the exact scientific way about it, but there is no more sugar in there once it gets fully like brewed and distilled. So that's what mine is.
Noted.
So mine's a sugar brew. It's 90, as you mentioned before, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 90 calorie, gluten-free.
So bring me back.
Yeah.
High school, what were you like in high school? Were you an entrepreneur in high school? Because to be able to drop your 9 to 5, and I would bet also, were you a social butterfly in high school? Like, what was your personality?
I would say, I think the way that our high school functioned, it was a bit, like everyone was sort of friends with everybody. Like they were melding like social groups. I would consider myself more of like a loner type. But to your point, I think I did have a little bit of the entrepreneurial bug because I sold energy drinks out of my locker. So like I would buy these like exclusive energy drinks offline. This was like 2006, 2007, 2008. I forget what they were, but they were like the stronger energy drinks, right? So I would get them and I would stuff my locker with like all these like unique energy drinks and then just sell them out of my locker. And that's kind of, I guess, like one of the starting points. I was a very big eBay guy too. I love like selling stuff on eBay. I don't know, the idea of like a transaction, even if I only made like a dollar or two, I love the transaction of it.
But you see that like how that is so important to what has molded who you are today.
Right.
Having an eBay store. eBay is a platform.
Yeah.
You had your own store. You were running your own store on this platform.
Right.
You weren't selling eBay. You had your own store. you might have been selling all of these energy drink products out of your locker.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were a fucking entrepreneur years ago. And
Yeah.
that helped to mold who you are now, because you then went from high school and then what was your first job out of college?
So first job was a sales associate, which I actually really, really liked. I really liked being a sales associate.
Selling what?
Clothes. So like it was a mix of like, so I worked at J. Crew as a stylist and a sales associate, and then I worked at Bergdorf Goodman, Laura Piana, which is like a little bit more like upscale, but I just loved
natural progression.
Yeah, natural progression. And so like I think the things that were able to take me from one step to another were one, being able to really just like rip off product knowledge, right? Just being able to say like what it is and how it relates to the consumer's life, right? And then also I think pattern recognition was like a huge thing, right? Because like I never saw myself as like the strongest seller, but I knew how to sell and what could be sold to certain people, right? So I'd look at certain body types, the way that people acted, right? And like, use this to eventually like, create playbooks for myself of like, oh, this person wants this, this, this. They would love these tangential products that kind of like worked with it, right? So I took that, and then I think that's how I was able to create a compelling enough story for myself to be able to transition into an actual tech job, 9 to 5. It wasn't 9 to 5, but you know what I mean, like an actual corporate tech job, saying like, hey, I understand UX, right? Because I've done these things. I understand how people flow and like how they function, like, as a person, and then how that plays into whether it's a mobile game, whether it's like a platform, and kind of how to build products around those experiences.
Which is so interesting, because the skill set that you took from being a genuine salesperson who's somewhat of a chameleon, working client to client, taking that into the
Product,
gaming,
mobile gaming,
the mobile gaming tech space, I would bet 99% of the people around you were coming from like a mobile tech background.
Right, yeah. And like it's funny, I think some were coming from like a finance background, but because the way that we were functioning was more like arbitrage, the way that we were like building out our games.
Gotcha. So for them, it wasn't a matter of having people who came with like this experience. They didn't want that. They wanted people who had expansive experience in other fields that can take those skill sets and implement them here.
Right, exactly. And I think
smart.
What
company was that?
So I worked for this mobile gaming studio called Lion Studios, which was a subset of this company called AppLovin. AppLovin is an ad network, and so we were like some of the first employees at Lion Studios.
How big are they now?
I think they just hit like 96 billion.
96 billion.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in NASDAQ 100. What's today? Yeah, probably like either this week, next week.
Nice. Wait, so they're not public yet?
No, they are.
Oh, they are public.
Yeah, yeah.
God, like 96 billion, like.
Yeah, no, they.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah.
They're hit 100. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have it in your portfolio?
I do. Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
Did you get everything you have is from when you worked there?
Oh yeah, so I haven't. If you ask me if I've bought in more, no, but I should have. I wish I did.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
I know, yeah.
And you didn't just know the sauce; you tasted the sauce.
Right, yeah.
That's on you.
That is on me, yeah. Especially like knowing like how great the management is and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
well, that's the thing with this type of stuff. With these companies, it's getting into the weeds and just knowing the people behind it,
right.
And betting on a company, not based on the company, but betting on the people in the company for the growth of the company.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, right? That's why most people invest, not just the idea. It's like
that's how most smart people invest.
Right. Yeah.
So you go to AppLovin.
Mm-hmm.
You're there. What's life like?
It was fun. I think if I was to do corporate again, I would want to either be back there or have a structure.
Could you ever do corporate again?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But in the way that I worked here, and the way that I think of it is like I was so early in this sort of like separate division of AppLovin that it felt like a startup. It felt like a startup without a lot of the headaches of like the admin stuff. Right, so you were just able to really get into the weeds and do what you wanted to do, and like work and be scrappy and try to like build this company up as fast as possible. Try creative things, wonky things, very like founder mode-esque things.
Right, but being able to have like the full support where you're not going to worry that like something's going to die.
Exactly. Yeah, and so like whether it's being an EIR or someone like something similar to that, like being able to like build up a division within the company, like that's I think the glory for like some people, especially people who have like sold companies. It's like, oh yeah, I'll sell my company and now I'll like work for you. I'll like, build something internally.
Yeah.
I think that's like really fun. Just like, because it is for the glory. Like it's like, oh yeah, I could build another company, no problem. Just give me some resources and I could do it easily.
I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me why you left App 11.
I think COVID hit, and I think not being in office anymore really changed just like how I liked functioning. Being more removed from people, just like every day, just being able to interact with people, being able to brainstorm like on the fly, just doing a lot of those things. I think it just sort of changed. And I think with a lot of people, if like COVID never happened and people were still in the office, I think a lot of people's lives would be very different, obviously, than they are today.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Everybody's life would be completely different. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know if I would have started this. I would have loved to start something like this, but I don't know if time and place would have ever like aligned with what I wanted to do.
Well, it's a perfect segue because what you eventually ended up doing. Now, when we were talking about starting a CPG product, you were talking about how, having this Bud Light effect, but having something that's more of the Bud Light meets vodka soda.
Yep.
Is that what made you fall into this, or were you looking for a CPG product and then that idea came back around?
I wasn't actively looking, but I knew I wanted to do something CPG, right? And so like it wasn't necessarily me trying to fish and like pin ideas together and like trying to find something that I want to act on, because I've done that before with apps and working on things. And I think like chasing that artificially never really worked out for me. So like I really waited until I had something where I had enough conviction for. Unfortunately for me, it happened to be something in the alcohol space. And the reason why I say unfortunately is because there's so many more regulations and red tape, and the competitors are like, it's very cutthroat. And like certain things you can't do, certain things you can do, where like if it was a non-alc CPG brand, you could do a lot more things and be a lot more nimble and, be able to act.
Yeah, even with social media marketing.
Right.
Isn't there like a lot of red tape with like someone reposting?
There's a lot you can or can't do.
Like if I were to go and like post like a partnership on my IG, I would have to put something along the lines of like, don't consume if you're under 21 or something like that.
So 21 plus is like, you'll see every single brand have that. It's like, oh, don't follow or like don't interact with if you're not 21 plus. So that's just like, that's baseline stuff, but like even just being out like in the streets, like being able to hand out product like freely, like that's very like tough. And like, that needs
do you do that?
Can I do that?
Yeah, do you do it?
I mean, you could do whatever you want as long as, you don't get in trouble for it.
Got it.
I'm not saying I do.
Have you gotten in trouble yet with anything in terms of
I think I have a pretty
legality of marketing?
No, I think I have pretty good guidelines, and I have good lawyers that tell me what I can and can't do, or what I shouldn't do, or what's frowned upon. Right? Obviously, like you always like teeter the line of like what's possible and what's not, and what's like actually can get you in trouble. But I think I stay more on the cautious side for sure when it comes to that.
Noted.
Yeah.
Tell me about the process on starting.
Oh my God.
The process on starting, because I did you fully fund this yourself?
For the most part, I funded it fully myself until I was able to get a pilot run out, which is like a couple thousand cans, right? And then from there, I did a very small friends and family round. But I wanted to wait as long as possible to even accept any sort of money, and now I'm waiting as long as possible until I do an actual proper seed round or a price round. So like, just kicking the can as far down the line as possible. Just
no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your MOQ per bottling?
Right, so my MOQ for my first run, so I did a 2,000 case run.
So MOQ is minimum order quantity. When you are purchasing any type of product in wholesale like such, there's any company, if it's drinks, it's probably going to be something in the thousands. If you're getting sweatshirts made, it might be 50. But that's what MOQ means. Yeah,
and so like I wanted to be pretty economical when it came to it. So I was looking for a partner that wasn't focusing on like very small MOQs, because those like the price, the tolling price per case is like a little bit higher because they do accommodate for like the lower MOQs. Something more in the mid range. So like the smallest MOQ I saw was like 500.
When you say you saw, cases. How are you finding these bottlers? How are you finding these vendors who are making the product?
So I guess to take a step back and your initial question of like how did I get started? Getting started in a area that I had zero idea on like how to get started was like pretty rough. Thankfully for me, one of my old business partners ended up. He used to work at a venture arm of a bigger alcohol company, but more on the strategy side. So he wasn't much help when it came to the operational side. If he's hearing this, sorry, it's just the truth.
Sounds like he still had the network for you, though.
Oh yeah, so he was able to help me talk to people, which I mean, like I think it comes down to a bit of luck and a bit of being able to access a network.
Yeah, it's like, listen, I'll get you in the room. Once you're in the room, it's on you.
Yeah, but funny enough, he was connecting me with more strategic people who wanted to talk to me about branding and talk to me about this and that. I'm like, I don't care about talking about branding. How do I get a can made? And I think like that was a lot of my start. And so it ended up being a lot of Googling and just like calling up different like suppliers. It's like, hey, I want to get this product made. Don't have a formula yet. I don't have like literally anything. Like, what's the first step? Can you help me? Some people would just hang up. It's like, oh, you're too early for me. Some people would give me guidance and say like, hey, we might not be the right fit, but what you're looking for is a flavor house. And that's the first thing I discovered was a flavor house. A flavor house is basically a company or like a bunch of food scientists that specialize in getting something made to taste like something specific, right? And so, whether you wanted a Pop-Tart made or like a frozen dinner made or like, whatever it is, or like an alcoholic beverage, you go to them, you give them a brief. It's like, hey, I want my beverage to taste like this, this, this. I don't want it to taste like this competitor. I want to have these notes of, for me, it's like pear and lemon, and then I don't want it to be artificially sweet. Don't want monk fruit in it. Don't want like these things. Want it to be slightly carbonated, but more like carbonated like a beer. But flavor-wise and flavor experience, I want it to be, kind of like nebulous. And so like, creating these briefs, as a big company, what you're able to do is send it to 5 different flavor houses and then see which ones are the closest to your vision and then go with there. And then you're able to do the process pretty quickly, right? For me as a solo founder entrepreneur, right, don't have unlimited resources, so have to be very strategic with my partners. And so I chose one that at least like sold me a pretty good vision of like, we'll help you make the formula, but then also help you with these next steps after, which I did not know, right? And so that's kind of what sold me on this one company. And so I effectively worked with them for about 10 to 12 months, back and forth formulation. They were an LA-based company, and so I was just working with them, giving them a lot of notes. This was actually a pretty stressful time because my initial like samples, I was like, this is not what I wanted at all. Am I ever going to get there?
Welcome to the grind.
Yeah, and like obviously that sort of like moment happens a lot. I still get it now, but like then it's like I'm not even close to what I would feel comfortable saying is my own, right? And so that was that. But eventually, I think the turning point was getting outside opinions. Because I think I was such in like, really in the weeds of it, tasted every single bad formulation.
Yeah.
Got to a certain
so
point.
The formulations, are you going to LA and trying them, or are they shipping you?
They're shipping me product overnight.
Got it.
Like,
so are they sending you like a 6-pack of like 6 different options?
Yeah, so it's a few different options every time, and so you're able to like compare and contrast, like see like what you don't like, and then go from there. Sometimes just every single one would just be not good.
So at the same time while you're doing this, what's your 9 to 5?
So at this time, I already left Apple Oven at this point. And then I went to work for a smaller mobile gaming company. And then I was working with them. And because this was all remote work and the hours that were needed for me were not a specific 9 to 5, I was able to work a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. And then, be able to find time to do something like this.
Yep.
Being, I guess, work from home and post-COVID life, it actually was like a blessing in disguise.
Even though you weren't getting the formula you wanted and it was getting stressful,
Yep.
Were you happy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I really liked doing it. I liked going through the process and, like, learning every single part of, like, getting my very first sample was, like, so fun. To just be able to hold something and say, like, this is mine. This could be a winner.
Yeah.
That was something I never felt doing something software related.
And when that first package came,
yeah,
that's when it became real.
I have a funny video, and maybe I'll give it to you to like clip in somewhere, but probably not because it's me very excited.
Regardless.
Yeah, it's me very excited opening the can or opening the package, talking about the product. Right, it just says like sample round number 1, right, whatever it is. Me getting really excited, me talking about how I'm nervous, taking a sip, face goes down, turning the camera off. And like obviously that's what happens because like it's not
It's
gonna
like,
be
fuck!
yeah, it's not gonna be good the first time, right? It's not gonna be good the second, third time. I mean, sometimes you may get lucky, but like for me, it was it was reality check like 100%. That very first round, and I kept getting those reality checks to a point where I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out.
How real were you with your tastemakers when you sip that? Are you sending them like how detailed are you getting with how much it needs to change?
Yeah, like the first thing I said, I was like, because it was really sweet. Like the first thing was really, really sweet. And for me, I did not want a sweet beverage, right? Because again, you think of beer adjacent, you don't think of sweet, right? And so the first thing I was like, first of all, this tastes like Kool-Aid sweet. This is like so
All right,
sweet.
so what's going in your head when you hear that? Are you thinking, oh, I'm paying for every stage of the process. It's going to cost me more to change this. I don't have this personal relationship with them. I have a business relationship. Could they potentially be not going by the formulation I suggested because they just want more money?
So the good thing is the way that I structured it with them was it was just basically a lot of rounds were included. And I think I got more rounds out of it because I started complaining a lot towards like the middle and end of it.
Yeah, but not because you wish you didn't have to do that.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah,
You're like shit. I didn't want any rounds. I just
Yeah.
wanted it perfect the first time.
When I first got into it, I thought I was going to get my product done and my first round of like pilot cans in 3 months. That took 18 months. But obviously, you're very ambitious. You set ambitious goals, ambitious timelines, and then reality slowly creeps in, which is why, like, in my past life, I was a product manager, which, their goal is to set aggressive deadlines for other people to figure out,
Yeah.
for better or for worse, right? But yeah, I was working on
And it's just, we know that deadlines don't mean anything.
deadlines unfortunately don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Until it's out, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, it was a fun experience though, really going back and forth for like, I think it was 10 to 12 months.
So what was the feeling and how long did it take for you to get this formula?
Yeah, so it was actually, again, I was not happy for most of the time along the way until I started bringing in a third party and like just friends and people who I felt would like be the target demographic and having them try it. And that at that point they were like, wait, this is like really good. This is so different than what I've ever tasted before. This is delicious. This is like XYZ. I would drink this way over like name some competitors. And that's when I had to like just like rewire my brain and kind of go into it with a blank slate and not with the baggage of like all the failed attempts before then. Right. And I think that because that was weighing me down. It's like, oh, another round, here we go again, right? Sort of feeling into like, oh, this is like getting really close to what I wanted. But yeah, that point eventually hit, and I was like, I think this is something that I can not push the market, but go into my pilot round and do a roadshow with it.
Is this going to be your 24/7 eventually?
So this is, yeah. So I went full time on this, and
you left.
I'm done. Yeah,
you're done. All right. So elevated. This is your 24/7. What is the most important thing to you when you wake up in the morning?
Probably the most important thing for me is, well, one, seeing if I could answer anybody that I love waking up to a lot of messages because that means there's action items for me that are right there in front of me. Creating your own action items, creating like what is the most important thing for you to do in the day, I think is a pretty tough decision, especially when every day is different.
Are you organized?
I try to be, yeah. I'm definitely more organized here. I love doing like notes, pen, paper, like kind of thing. Like I like doing that more than like a phone, just because like I like the physical aspect of crossing something off and like tossing it out.
I like that.
Yeah. Like I think like it's the same thing as like a walk and talk. Like being able to physically walk towards like your goals.
I like that a lot. Talk to me about marketing.
Yes.
Because you come from a marketing background. You have a CPG product that stands out on the shelf. Are shelves important to you? Are digital impressions important to you? Talk to me about marketing.
Right. So I think it's definitely a mix of both. I think for digital, the way that a lot of brands use it is to create the lifestyle, right? And create what people, like someone who has never heard of your brand, like understand the aesthetic and like where it's meant to be like lived in within their life, right? I think the most important thing though as a CPG product is getting cans in hands, right? So whether it's doing a lot of like sponsored events where maybe it's a run club that are meeting at a bar after and like I'm just like giving out tons of dirty waters or like.
How often do you do that?
I try to do at least like 2 or 3 events a week. of like me being able to give product to people and just have it out there for free, freely sponsored. Or it's like, say I go into a bar and then like I buy a round for like a bunch of people, right? A bunch of like random people that I don't know. So like a lot of like, grassroots marketing for sure. But then outside of that, there are some guerrilla things that you want to do. And then even when you think of point of sale, like at a grocery store or at a bar, like that is so important because if someone goes in and they may have heard of your product, but if they don't see the product out there, if it's not visible, like whether it's on like the top shelf or, right in front of them, or even like some small things as small as like, table tents or coasters or things like that, like that physical marketing, which, is a lot of money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's so necessary.
I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine last night. He's in business school. There's actually a partner of mine in one of my other businesses. Mm-hmm. And he is in business school in Austin. And there's a lot of CPG brands that were birthed in Austin.
Oh, for
so he was
sure.
talking to me about a CPG product that he had an idea for. And just knowing the grit that it takes to grow and succeed in CPG, it's scary.
It is.
And that's what I was talking with him about. And this conversation happening less than 24 hours later, it just, everything is so fresh. And you seem to have the vision. Not seem it. You have the vision. And you know what you're doing. I want to know, what does growth look like?
Right.
Like why you?
Yeah. So,
why you?
Yeah. So I think, it comes down to like a couple different steps of growth for me. And I think baby steps, right? And I think the way that I look at growth, and me specifically, I don't know specifically why me, but I know that I'm the only one that's doing this, and I'm the only one that has my vision.
What is this?
This being the Dive Bar single SKU hard seltzer, right? And I know that there's a market for this. And just because of me even testing it my first 6 months out in the market, people really want a product like this. The one hurdle, well, obviously there's a couple hurdles, but one of the main things when it comes to people and wanting to stay and stick with your product is just that social currency and, people being assured that this is a product that they want to drink. And that just comes down to exposure, right? Continuing to be at those point of sales, continuing to be shown like with their favorite influencers or like their tastemakers of their groups, right? Because there's always that one person in the group that is the first one to try something and have them, share it with other people.
So it just tastes like seltzer.
So the way I describe it, and to talk about the specific flavor ride that I'll call it. So there's notes of pear and citrus. And the reason why I chose pear specifically is I knew that there had to be like sort of a fruity element to it or like a citrusy element to it. But I didn't want it to be sort of like candy sweet. You think of watermelon, black cherry, all these other flavors that like you just associate
orange,
with
grapefruit.
You associate with it being tart or like very just naturally sweet. When I think of a pear, I think of, sure, there's sweetness there, but you don't think of it as like
it's more of a crisp.
Yeah, it's crisp, right? Exactly, and people
don't use that.
So it is light, crisp, refreshing, and so that being one of the base flavors, that it's not going to overpower like anything, right? And then lemon just to kind of counteract with like a little bit of acidity there, I think is like very nice. And so you have these initial notes of pear and lemon, and they go away pretty fast. And
it says crisp on the can.
Yeah. There you go.
Boom.
Unique crisp blend.
I should have asked you if I could use it.
But from there, the flavor almost goes away like completely, and that's by design because, again, when drinking a lot of these like candy sweet hard seltzers, the flavor lingers, and it builds on itself. So the first time you have one, you have a little leftover black cherry flavor. Then you have a second black cherry one, and now it just like builds up over the course of an evening, and it becomes tougher and tougher to drink. Almost like gets like too tarty like back here, and like it gets pretty tough to like swig one down. So I wanted something that you can call it like a Coke or like a Red Bull, where like you can continue to drink it, and because your taste buds are going to forget about it, and it's almost like chasing that high, right? It's like, oh, forgot what this tastes like. You say you're going to taste this pear and lemon. It's going to go away really quickly, and then it's going to be followed by almost like this light, refreshing maltiness of the alcohol, because that's what's more prominent in here is the taste of the alcohol. That's followed by this almost like smooth finish that resembles sort of like sake. And that's kind of how I describe the ride in a more, I guess, thorough manner.
No, to piggyback on that, because less talking about the product, more talking about you. How has creating this product changed your life? Let me rephrase that. How has going full time in building a product changed your life?
I think I've become more empathetic to people's problems, I guess, especially when so my focus is on-premise locations. On-premise being again, bars, restaurants. It's very different than trying to drop yourself in a 500 account, like CVS, right? It's
Yeah.
oh, you get a contract and now you're going to be exposed everywhere. With bars, every single bar is its own relationship, right? And understanding what their problems are, understanding how you can help solve them. I have some bars that I work with that they don't know if they can pay the rent next month, right? And it's just okay, yes, I'm pushing my product. I want my product to succeed, but I also want you guys to succeed too, because it's something where I'm only as good as the people that are selling it, right? And so being empathetic to what their needs are and seeing if there's anything I could do. And I think for me at this point, it is giving back to the accounts that I'm working with, right? Because if they're happy with me, then they'll be more than happy to push my product. And so not using it as true marketing channel, but really I want to do this for the people. I love going to your local bar and just chatting up with the bartenders, the locals.
Right, but what does that do for your pockets?
So as of right now,
because you're a startup, and end of the day, you need. I'm sure you've burned through your runway, and right now, you need those dollars coming in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so I think one of the main things is just getting them to continue to buy, right? And so as long as they're happy and my product is front and center, and I could do whatever I can, and whether it's free promotion of me posting about it on my Instagram, or talking to other people saying, oh, go to this bar and buy dirty water here, and it helps both parties. And so as I continue to do that and do things that aren't directly attributable to my bottom dollar, right? Because if I have someone go in and buy 2 cans, that's still a very small percentage until they could actually rebuy again, but it gets them remembering that I'm still there, right? And I think right now it's that slow play and trying to build to that single inflection point of what's the next step. So for me, my first step right now is getting a solid, let's call it 50 accounts that are really, really dirty water bars, right? And making them known as oh, I'm going to this bar. Obviously, got to buy dirty water, right?
Yeah. Long Island City, Brooklyn, Queens. So Long Island City, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Are you in where are you mostly?
Yeah, so I'm really focusing in right now. East Village, Lower East Side, Williamsburg, Bushwick, and then a little bit of West Village too. And so those are my main pockets, because I think, especially with CPG, it comes down to concentration and someone going from bar to bar, seeing it, recognizing it, knowing it's in multiple spots, and it's not just a one-off thing.
I got an idea.
Tell me.
I got an idea. Have you done any snail mail marketing?
No, not too much.
What if you did mail marketing? People get 800 emails a day.
Mm-hmm.
People don't get that much snail mail. If you do, they see that it's either a Fugazi credit card or a
business loan,
bill, something like that. What if it was a postcard from Dirty Water with a list of here's half a dozen bars that we're in your neighborhood. Bring in this card for a free Dirty Water.
I like that.
So now they got to go to one of these bars.
Mm-hmm.
So however you want to work it out with the bars, the compensation, whichever way it wants to work with whenever they get one of these cards. But you could send out, do 500 of them, test the waters, test the dirty water. Or you could send out 5,000, and being able to do geo-targeting, you could literally pick, if 4 of those bars are within one block, you do the corner, and then you could do 5,000 residences within a quarter of a mile radius from that corner.
I love it. You're hired.
Boom. That's a great idea.
It's funny.
Now it's because not only is it brand recognition, if you send 5,000 of them out, not only is it brand recognition because now they just got something in the mail, so now they know the logo, they know the name, so when they're out, if they see it, it's already, that's, but now, then the other is if they actually use it, they bring it in, and now they've tried it, and now it's just, second nature, because, Dirty Water gave me a free one. People always feel like they need to give back. Whenever you give, people feel they need to reciprocate.
Oh, yeah.
So the reciprocation is then buying a dirty water. So they got a free one. You're gonna finish this, and now they're gonna buy one because likely now in their head it's a buy one get one free. And then when they come back, you hope that one, they come back to that bar because now you've brought them to that bar, so that bar has a reason to do it with you, and they'll probably also give you money for the marketing. At least they should. And then also it's now client building. I love this idea.
I love it. Yeah. And the nice thing about that too, and talking about like giving back, is whenever I receive something free from like a restaurant or like a waiter, like whoever it is, I'm always going to tip like more than your normal 20-25%, right?
Yep.
And so like as a bartender seeing that and like they're getting that extra tip, like it's like, oh wow, Dirty Water is doing me like, a really like good solid, right? So I like it.
I like that. And speaking of viral marketing, what do you do with influencers?
So the way I work with influencers, and so I call them more tastemakers, I think, at the people I work with, because like I'm not working with people that are just faces and cameras.
Yeah. Do you know the company Ate It?
Ate It, no.
Ate It. The number 8, IT. Best food app you're gonna find.
Oh, I have heard of this actually. Yeah. I don't think I've used it. But,
yeah. So Ate It. Like if you're ever if you're ever using a food app, Ate It is like the only one. It's like a food app made by foodies.
I'll check it out.
And he calls his users, his his active users who push out content to other users, tastemakers.
That's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I call them tastemakers, or even like more on like the socialite side, right? Because the people that I want representing my brand are not people that are just going to be behind a camera, but like you see them out in the street, or you see them like at a bar, they're going to be drinking dirty water. It's more like ingrained in their life, and like someone that you could be more relatable towards, rather than just like a face with 1 million something followers, right? And so those are the people I'm working with, and so they aren't like ambassadors per se, but they're people that will inject it into their content organically. You'll see them if they do a party for like their friends and family, like Dirty Water is going to be a sponsor of that party, and so that's kind of how I've been approaching the influencer side of things, at least right now.
Awesome. What's like the most amount of dirty water you've ever donated to an event? Because for a startup, like every pour is
a dollar amount. Yeah, and that's what I think about too. It's like, oh, this is going to be X amount of dollars, even though people don't like associate it with it. They just think free products.
Oh my God, yeah, people always want free product.
Yeah.
And it all costs dollars.
Yeah, I was doing a event one time at a festival, and it's one of the places where like they come with their little cup and you pour like maybe a 2-ounce pour, and I have like stickers and stuff on my table. It's like, oh yeah, you could grab one, and then like this guy kept coming back over and over again. He took like maybe like 7 koozies, like 10 stickers, and I was like, what are you doing with all these koozies? Like,
yeah, what are you doing? He just wanted to keep getting the 2 ounce and wanted to make it like he needed to grab the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
He was trying to get drunk off dirty water because it was probably delicious,
right? And
he wanted to get drunk. But
then he also kept like grabbing like this other
whereas it would have been better for you if he would have just said, hey, this stuff's delicious, can I have a full can?
Right, exactly. So but to your point, yes, it is very expensive. I don't think people realize when they see like free product, it's like, oh, let me grab like a ton, right? That's just like, oh, grabbing, putting it in their bag. But I think the most I donated to one event is 20 cases, which in hindsight is not that much, because I've heard stories of bigger brands dropping off an entire pallet full at like a frat house, right? Which is like obviously like a very tried and true way of marketing. It's just like, I don't have, logistically and also like my capabilities, I don't have that right now. But maybe one day.
I've had Diageo. I've done work with Diageo, and they've donated bottles of Johnny Walker Blue for guests. My self-starter networking event, they donated the entire bar. So just like Johnny Walker Blue and one of their reposados, and the amount of alcohol that they dropped off for the bar, and then just like left all this extra, was like thousands upon thousands of dollars worth, where they're just just marketing.
Yeah, and like that's why for me, I think, and this is an early, I guess like stance that I had. It's like, and I have changed it a bit, but I am going back to it. All of my marketing dollars that I spend, I want to do it at bars. So like, what's the difference between me doing something like that versus me going to a bar, doing a spend, or like being like, hey, I would love to do like a bartender incentive, or like, you know, like these random things, spending money and then giving out to like patrons there, same amount of dollars, maybe even cheaper. And now it's getting the bar money, right? It's getting me visibility on my product, and then the bar is going to also probably reorder because I bought a bunch of the product at the bar.
Noted.
Right? So I think like that's probably one of the.
Got it.
the
I got
things.
another idea, but we'll talk about it off camera.
For sure.
Yeah. So what are the next 3 to 6 months, like from now ramping up till summer 2025?
Right.
What's that look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, it really is building those key accounts, those like real, again, we'll call them tastemaker accounts, right? The accounts that can push product to people. The people will drink anything, but now they understand what the product is. Maybe they'll do deals for the product there. And then getting those accounts and getting my story and the data aligned so I can go to a bigger distributor, distributors that have a sales team, right, and a sales force, and being able to go there and say, hey, I have these X amount of accounts. This product is killer. They're buying X amount of cases a week. Do you want to take me on? And then, you know, ideally, I've told a compelling enough story, obviously data-wise, and also just like selling the vision that they want to take me on now. And then from there, then I can easily scale from 50 to 250 accounts to 500 accounts at the drop of a hat.
Most important thing.
Yeah.
Follow up, follow up, follow up.
Always follow up. That's the biggest thing. And like, I think it's funny how much I do to follow up for like what effectively is a $200 check. You know, humble beginnings for sure. It's very different than like software, but like very humble beginnings. But I just love the thrill of it.
Amen.
It's really fun.
Are you reading anything right now?
I'm not, unfortunately. I do my digests of like, you know, industry news every morning, and aside from that, I'm reading a lot of emails and text messages throughout the day.
Noted. Is there any book that you would recommend for anyone to read?
0 to 1. That was a good one.
Peter?
Peter, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Love that. Just 0 to 1. That speaks to you.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the hardest thing, right? Like everyone's like, oh, your very first customer. If you can actually get a first customer, then you know you have something there. I think being able to appropriately attack that is always, you know, the best thing.
As important as it gets. Now, before I let you go, give me one word of advice for anyone trying to make it.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of just going out there and doing things. I think people have, and I had it for such a long time, analysis paralysis when it came to doing things. They need to think everything's perfect and need to make sure that their vision is exactly what they want it to. And I will tell you, even if your vision is perfect today and what you think it's perfect today, it's going to be different 6 months from now or a year from now. So why not just get it out now, get feedback, get responses, and then, you know, build and iterate.
Fucking love it, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Dom Minogue, Minogue like Kylie, founder of Dirty Water, Dirty like Christina. It was a good interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.